So let's talk about the flip side of this. How do you advise entrepreneurs to respond to the 1 stars and the 2 stars and the long paragraphs about how much they suck, which we've all gotten, myself included. How do you advise entrepreneurs to respond to that, both in the comments, like on platform, digitally, and then in real life as well? What's the SOP for dealing with 1 stars?
Take like as many deep breaths as you need before your emotions are gone. That's number one. Don't respond to a review if you're feeling emotional about it. And if you can't get the emotions down, get someone else
Is
to
that
respond
common?
to it for you.
Sorry to cut you off. How is that?
Oh yeah.
Like people will sort of like, well, I'm going to show him in the comments.
Absolutely. Like, you know, they're out there not to win a customer. They're out there to win an argument. And you know, this is not, you know, we've all been there. You know, I think if any of us were to say that we haven't been in a situation where we desperately wanted to justify ourselves, we'd be lying.
Of course.
You know, we've all been there in a situation where we wanted to justify ourselves, where we wanted to win the argument. But this is not about winning the argument, it's about winning the customer. And so step one, wait until you're in the mindset where you're ready to win the customer, not the argument.
Okay. Step two.
Step two, win the customer. Okay, why is the customer feeling the way that they're feeling today? What steps do you have to take in order to change how they're feeling right now to the way that you want them to feel? And take those steps and then write about those steps in the review response. So ideally, our review response is showing the steps that we've just taken to remedy the situation. It's not like, hey, I'm sorry you feel that way. You know, we're really sorry this happened. You know, great. You know, a bunch of sorries are okay. But what really shows what kind of company we are is, hey, I understand, you know, if it's the case, we messed up. Here's what we're doing about it. This is the next steps that we're going to do right now. And this is how we're going to make the situation right for you. And then we can prove it with our actions, not just our words. Now, this doesn't apply to every circumstance. There's cases where truly you didn't mess up. And you know, there's people who are just, you know, serial complainers on reviews. Even in those scenarios, though, we're not trying to win the argument. We're trying to win the customer. So look for an opportunity to be understanding. See if we can even ask them questions, maybe offline, of how we can do better next time. And then when we're responding in the review response, show our course of action to remedy the situation, even if it wasn't our fault. Because you know, sometimes it's not our fault, it's out of our control. But we still want to see how we can win the customer.
Lars, what is the grace period or sort of the statute of limitations on like how long do we have? If you're pouring a cement foundation and it firms up and cures, you can't fix it. You know, there's maybe a few moments there where a mistake can be corrected while it's still malleable and it's still soft. I'm wondering if you can maybe kind of take that analogy to Google. Is there a couple days? Is it a couple weeks? How long? And I don't actually, this is maybe a technical question. Is there a rule within Google that, you know, there's a couple days before this 1 star becomes a permanent 1 star? Or is it something that we can kind of always fix?
Yeah, so something you can always fix, though the friction for fixing it arguably gets much harder with the passage of time. So someone can always update the review that they've left. A year later, 5 years later, they can go and update the review that they've left on Google. And we get this, you know, quite, you know, often with the companies we work with. People who go above and beyond to remedy a situation and turn a 1 star review into a 5 star review. And not infrequently, that person becomes one of their top most vocal fans because of that process of reconciliation. Now, the passage of time, though, when you're talking about real life, like not, you know, how long can I edit this in Google, but the real life effects, as time passes, what you have to do to turn a bad experience into a good one, it's like interest, you know, it builds up. The more time that passes, often the harder it is to to reverse somebody's opinion, and the more damage that opinion has done because that review's lingered up there. So ideally, as soon as you can get past the emotional state of not wanting to win the argument, try to win the customer. Do it as quick as possible.
Listen, if you like that clip, you can watch the full episode by clicking here. If you're not yet subscribed, you probably should be, and you can do that by clicking right here.